So, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. Today, we're going to actually be channeling my dad's spirit. I want to get some more confirmations because I'm sure, as a lot of you are, I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to, mediumship, psychic mediumship. So, one thing I want to put out there is that I haven't told Abbie anything about my dad. She doesn't know his name, she doesn't know what he looks like, she doesn't know what he was like. She basically has no information other than he's just my dad. So you can jump in whenever you want, Abbie. I don't know how this works, but
so I was brushing my teeth and I was absolutely starting to get some imagery about your dad. He was showing me imagery like I was looking at an old movie, like from when you were a little kid or something. Did you ever do dance when you were younger?
yeah.
Yeah, because he was showing me imagery of you dancing, like, but actually, like, not just in your bedroom, actual, like, taking class, like, doing lessons.
I was doing that, but I just didn't take classes. I was doing that on the like in the living room on the coffee table. It was
On the
something I
coffee
did.
table. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I want to ask, is there a specific scent, a smell that you get that you would identify with him?
So the scent that I am picking up right now is, when a man gets out of a shower, all right, and they like they shave and that smell of like soap and it's definitely like I don't know how to describe it. My dad used to use Old Spice when I was a kid. I don't know if they had that in your country. But like I'm definitely like I can it smells very fresh, like a very fresh
Mhm.
fragrance. You know what I mean? Very clean. So he's showing me like just an attribute of his character that he
Okay.
took care of himself. So he was somebody that did take showers regularly and he did like shave regularly. And but did he have any facial hair? Because I am picking up like that he had some facial hair.
He had the same freaking facial hairdo his entire life, basically. Like he was unrecognizable without it. And I just want to ask you if you can get what that is because he was very specific.
Definitely like a mustache.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing his hair like every single day. His hair was always the same way, like very
Mm.
like, you know what I mean? Short, not long. So his hair, I'm almost seeing it's almost like a sandy brown, like a lighter sandy brown.
Mm-hmm.
He was a slimmer man. Okay. Um, but tall. He's showing me his hands right now. He had like long fingers. Um,
So the showering part, absolutely. He showered day and night. And in fact, another question I was going to ask you is what's his favorite soap? Because he was a very particular man and he used
he's laughing right now. I can hear his laugh.
one soap.
To come in a little bit more.
Okay.
It's not a liquid soap. It's a bar soap that I'm seeing. Okay. And it's like what is it called? It's not just like is it Ivory Falls or something? Ivory Falls.
Ivory is super close. It's okay. You don't have to you don't have to
Yeah.
force it if it
I don't
doesn't
want to
come
use
through.
yeah, I don't want to guess
Yeah.
through it. I'm actually picking up this happiness about him. Like he's very protective.
Mm-hmm.
Very I don't want to say controlling, but like I do feel a little bit of that. It's just more like I know what to do. I know how to be and very dominating like when it came to like trying to push you in the right directions towards things and trying to steer your mind. And he said he's actually I'm hearing him saying he could be very overbearing at times.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, he can be very overbearing. He had a hard time with you having privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he liked to know what was happening. But then it was so hard because he's saying because he was so protective. He didn't know how to communicate well, he says.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he would get angry versus like but it came out of worry and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um he's saying I'm not so good with words sometimes. He's
The
making a promise to you right now.
Oh, what is he saying? Let's see.
He's saying that oh gosh, I just got huge spirit bumps. Spirit bumps are goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
When you're raises when like it gets cold. Like to me, that's validation. He wants me to say this to you. He promises he's always going to be in your business. But he promises that he's going to communicate better about it because now that
Okay.
he's on the other side, he can see he's still very protective of you. And just so you know, he isn't he's okay. All right. So he really is trying to take a step back and allow you to make your own decisions. But it's he's got a very thick accent. It's it's very difficult for him. I'm asking him if he knew English, right? And yes, he did know English. Um, he was traveled. He's saying he did travel, outside of like where he was. He's also showing me imagery of like skiing. Did he ski? Yeah.
Yeah, we went
And
skiing.
he wasn't such a I want to be by myself all of the time person. He really did enjoy doing things as a family and giving you kids experiences. But he's very traditional, very, very traditional in his ways of masculinity, of thinking how he should be. He got
Mhm.
that from his dad.
For me, that's enough, more than enough confirmation. If anything else comes through, we can definitely add it in.
I'm
Okay.
still pissed off at him for this whole like soap.
The soap. I know he could have done like a little bit of
He's going like
charade.
this. He's going like this. He's like, come on, like really
Get to the good
I'm
stuff.
really worried about the soap. He's like, he's like talking to the air right now. Just like totally just like, I want to tell you what he's wearing right now.
Yeah, go for it.
He's wearing a navy blue polo shirt.
Okay.
Yeah. And slacks that are like a khaki.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a brown belt. And he is a thin man. He's not like a chunky man. He's
I guess he wanted to be remembered as his younger self. I'm getting that from him. Like,
I find that a lot. And I feel like when I'm 80, I want to be brought through as my younger self as well.
right. Yeah, not his
He's
bloated alcoholic self. Like he doesn't want to be remembered as
he's
that.
saying the age of 27.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense. In fact, the hair.
As he aged. He says he's explaining to me, he wants you to know, like, he wasn't always an unhappy person. He wasn't always, he says he wasn't very good at critical thinking through things towards the end of life.
Oh,
It was very like thoughts, and he didn't know how to process them.
he did in fact get a little bit demented towards the end. So maybe that's what that felt like. At one point he had like a medical thing where he couldn't even remember his language, like the mother tongue that he was born with. He could only remember English, which was really
He
weird.
says there was chaos that was going on in his mind constantly, and he was very much living in the past when it came to how he was treating people.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't appreciating your growing up in this. He kept this very like this way of thinking that he just couldn't evolve from and move from. And what happened is it just made it more confusing for him. Like he got very confused.
Connecting right to that, I want to ask a question. What was the biggest difference of how he felt when he was alive and how he feels now? Like now that he's dead.
Huge weight, huge weight. I just felt my shoulders go like have a weight lifted off my shoulders. He said it was because of the responsibility of having to, he put a lot of responsibility and a lot of anger on himself. Just for every reason you can imagine. He says he was a very proud man. And so as the chaos over time ensued his mind, I'm just repeating what he is saying, it really ripped away at and tore away at his personal, like at his personality and even his own belief structure. He became very doubtful, he's saying. He became very uninspired. The things that used to inspire him did not anymore. The passions that he used to find passion with did not anymore. And it didn't get better. So when he crossed, it was very, he says at first it was very traumatic in a way, because
Why?
it was the feeling of like, that's it. Like everybody talks about how long, you think you're going to live forever, even when you know you're going to die, or you think you're going to die. It's like he's telling you that you have no human concepts of how short your life here on earth really is. He's making me feel like how he was feeling towards the end now,
Actually, I don't even want you to feel that. Like, it must have been so bad. I don't even want you to feel that.
He doesn't want you to feel bad.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to feel bad because he wants you to know it's nothing to fear. He says it's a natural process, and it's a process that I needed to go through for his own, he says, for his own sanity. That's interesting because it was a soul contract thing for his life to end when it did. So he needed to be able to allow himself, because he was so structured and strict and disciplined with himself. He needed to be able to find a way to let himself leave his humanness and let himself leave his body. That is what I'm talking about by it can be traumatic, in the sense where it feels very, like he says, it feels very violating, having all of these things you cannot control. And now you release it, and allowing yourself to release it when you have held on to that so tight. And it's not your body he was holding on to so tight. It was the control. It was the control. It was the atmosphere. It was the, like, he's even bringing up direction. It was just like realizing that there really is more than this whole universe is so much bigger than just you. You really are one of a whole. And he, I don't know, I don't want to say this, but I feel like he got very selfish, and I don't mean to sound cliche by that from what you did just tell me, but I feel like he got very selfish, about his intentions, and it became all about him. And that wasn't like how he wanted it to be. That wasn't how he didn't get married and have a family to have it be just about him,
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask you about, is that why it took him so long to die? At least from our perspective, he
says he was very, very stubborn. Very stubborn. It was about the control. It was about releasing the control and allowing something greater than him and to explore it. And he had fear. He had a lot of fear.
Interesting.
Yeah. He had
fear of death?
Fear of allowing the control to just decease, to exist. Because he was out of control, is what he's saying. And then he just really, he had a long process, because it needed to be a long process for him to be able to cope with allowing himself to let go. So that was a very scripted thing before he came into his life, that the process would be what it was.
I see.
It was to teach him that you can't control everything. You can't control everyone. That was a life lesson for him.
And connecting to that, can I ask, what was his life review like, or right after he died? What was that like, the transitioning process?
He says that okay, so like I said, it was traumatic for him to get to a point that he was able to let himself go. Then when he let himself go, I feel this weight, but then I feel like for a minute there, he kind of looked around at himself. He looked around at his family. He looked around at he just was looking around, at the world, just his space, his spaces he's existed in.
Wow.
And at first, it didn't even occur to him, he says, to ask somebody to be there with me. It didn't even occur. He was just kind of there and just kind of taking it in. And he still felt the need to control it. He still felt the need to control it. So his life review was not immediate.
I'm laughing. You want to know why? Because actually, like his living space, he was alone. So my mom had to fly in, help disassemble the place. And I was there Skyping all throughout that process to make sure all of his treasured belongings like went somewhere they would be appreciated and didn't just get discarded because nobody lives there anymore, like where he was living. So we did make sure everything was taken care of. I hope he knows that.
That was what he needed, though.
Yeah.
Like, he was a part of that process because that was his personality.
Right, exactly.
Like, he needed to make sure he wasn't a human anymore. He was a spirit, but like he wasn't thinking like, okay, where's my angels? No. It was like, all right, let's get to work here. Let's make sure, is that packaged right? Or is that wrapped up? Like, is it, it's like he needed to stand there and still like pretend like he was actually like telling you guys what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, I feel like I was listening. I feel like I was taking notes. So yeah.
Yeah, he was a part of that whole process, making sure that things were wrapped up correctly and that they
Nice.
were being done. Okay, so then what happened was as soon as that process was done, and he stood there and he looking around his place and he's like, all right, all right. Now what do I do?
So he
Like,
was a bit of a lingering ghost there for a minute, huh? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
He just kind of like didn't get it.
Okay.
I'm kind of making fun of him. I'm like, oh, you're a little slow, huh?
Oh,
He goes,
gosh.
oh, no, don't laugh at me. Don't laugh. He's telling me to laugh at myself.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually him. Like he wouldn't like being joked about.
But yeah, he says he was lighthearted. There was a time he was a lighthearted man.
There was
He thinks he was funny.
actually he was. I'll give it to him. He was funny. He was funny until he got a little demented, and then not so much.
He got mean, demented,
Yeah.
is what he's saying. He got mean.
Yeah.
There was a time where it was like dad joke, and then you were like, like
Yeah.
a dry humor, dry. Actually, no, he didn't even ask what he was going to do now. That's not what he did. It was just like, okay, all right, okay, I'm still here. Like, what do I need to control something. What am I going to control now? What am I going to do? Like, I need to do something. I need to be in charge of something. Somebody needs to listen to me about something, but I don't even know what's okay, you can ask me a question now. I just wanted to explain.
That's hilarious. That's him, just so you know. And I was actually curious about how the transition would go because I did have a hard time believing that he would just go off and let everything go. He was exactly how you're describing
Why
him
was he
to
so
be.
worried about his shoes? Did he have a lot of shoes?
He had, yeah. I mean, he had a collection of everything. For him was precious: his clothes, his shoes, his diving gear,
his shoes,
everything.
man.
Yeah. And we gave it to whoever could wear it. I'm sorry, Dad. Like, there's not much. It wouldn't fit your son, so there you go.
No, he doesn't care now.
Oh, okay, okay.
But in the time, it was like he's showing me like his shoes.
Right.
Very concerned about his shoes.
They were leather. They were genuine leather. They were very comfortable.
They're very nice shape. As part of the process of him crossing, as everybody got the news, he was there to watch them get the news of his crossing. And it was part of the process of understanding, that he had crossed over. He kind of just watched everybody. He kind of just stood there and watched and started to really pick up the cue. Okay, I'm getting my spirit bump, so I know I'm on. He had to get the cue and get the clue that he couldn't control it. He wasn't here, and he couldn't influence like how he wanted to. And it's like he's saying he went from a very irrational mind to a very rational mind very fast. He crossed, and it was like suddenly it was like he was back to his old self, like when he was in his 20s, and how he was thinking and his behaviors. And then it was like once he said on the third day, he's saying was seeing everybody sleeping. And he started saying his goodbyes because he didn't know what exactly was next. He could feel presences. And he says the presences started way back. And then they started coming closer and closer. He could just feel it. It was like a gravitational pull. He could feel the pull coming. So the third night, everybody was sleeping. And because he didn't know how he knew, but he just knew. He's saying because he had heard and that he could speak to you in your dreams. Then his mom was with him. He must have been a Christian. Did he believe in Jesus? Did he believe in Jesus?
Not Jesus particularly, but he believed in God.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to put this out there. Jesus was there too.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Dakota said the same thing. She wasn't exactly a Christian. She was very much more, we'll say she was very spiritualist, a lot like I am. I was shocked when I found out that she was like, well, my mom and my grandparents, and then Jesus was there. And so it's kind of funny how
interesting.
Your dad also, your mom, Jesus, and then his dad, but his dad was way back. Like his father wasn't ready to come forward more because he wanted to give him space. He wanted him to feel comfortable and not be feeling like Grant. It was a lot. It was a lot to just kind of like allow his humanness to let go, allow himself. And he got very sad.
Why?
Because he loved you all.
No.
He really did love you all. And he saw how beautiful his children were. He saw how beautiful his life really was. Like he started to see the love and the beauty. And really that's what that gravitational pull started to get very, very strong. Because once the whole ego started to lift of him and he started to just feel love for you all and how much he really loved you all and started to question himself about, did they know how much I loved them? They didn't know. I feel like I'm gonna cry right now.
Me too. Like that's so
I get emotional. Like I feel emotional feelings. Like that's called clairsentience.
Yeah.
In fact,
all I was trying to tell him was like, I know you were fucked up, but I know you loved us. Like I could feel it, and I wanted him to forgive himself as well.
He's telling you, he's saying, I had a very hard time with that. He was very mad at himself.
He did cause a lot of pain.
I think I'm gonna cry right now. So the last person he visited was you, just so you know. It was you. You were the hardest one, because you were his little girl. And he knew when his ego started to lift and he started to feel like and process your thoughts and your memories and your emotions. He didn't know where these were coming from, but he was feeling them. And it was just like, he felt so heavy and sad and so sorry, so incredibly. And it's like, he wished he could take it back, but he knew he couldn't. And he's saying so much time lost. He's saying again, life is very short, and he's showing me holding you and kissing you and kissing you and kissing you and kissing you. And you weren't responding. You weren't realizing he was doing that. Usually when we're in a heavier state of grief or heavier, denser feeling, that can make it more difficult to connect with your loved one or anyone that's passed. Okay.
In fact, it took some time for me to actually start feeling him. First, I had to process a lot of my own grief, and that took a while. So and then he got in my dreams all the time.
Yeah, he says he's staying in your dreams. He's not going anywhere.
Great.
He still has much of the sense of wanting control, but in a very positive, loving way. Okay, so here's what happened. So he was kissing you and he was hugging you and you were sleeping and he was telling you how sorry and he couldn't reach you. You couldn't hear him. And it was it was a very emotional moment for him. And then he turned around and that's when his mom was there immediately. And he started crying, 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 crying. Okay. And she was just holding him and hugging him and telling him it's going to be okay. They know, they're gonna know, they know, and we have to go now. We have to go. You don't need to be here. So he didn't look for anybody. He didn't ask for anybody. It was just like once the ego started to go and he started to realize like, okay, my stuff is packed, my shoes are good.
Yeah.
Shoes he's worried about. Like my things are in its place, and he knew he needed to say his goodbyes. And then it was like he turned around and his mom was there.
Did he meet God or something like that? Like, how did that feel for him?
Mind blowing. Can I go back to a question that you just asked me about his life review?
Sure.
He cried the entire time, just so you know. Very emotional.
Oh God.
Very emotional. And that's interesting because he wasn't in his human body anymore, but like he still had that human, when you cross, you still have that human aspect. Sometimes it's very human about you, So from the day of his birth to up until he crossed, he not just saw, I'm trying to get some imagery of where he was and what was happening. It kind of reminds me of this movie, A Christmas Carol, when Scrooge goes to like, he physically goes to each moment in his life. So he was like physically there in each moment, like it was existing. Some people see it on like a big screen in the movie theater. Some people see like a 360 around you and they're sitting there holding the hand of their loved one. Some people see it in their childhood living room, on a TV screen where they felt most comfortable growing up as a kid. And that's how they're seeing it. Your dad was with his mom, and there was another man there with him as well. I believe it was a guide. He laughed and he cried and laughed more and cried more, and he heard other people's thoughts and saw other people's opinions, and he's got angry. There were times where he was getting angry, like watching this, because it was like angry at somebody else's reaction, angry at his own reaction, angry at how that influenced other people's personalities. It was just, he said it was the toughest thing he's ever been through in his life.
To review the whole
But
thing.
he says he was really grateful for it because it gave him just such a understanding that he was missing for all of his life, his whole life. It's just, he says, there's so much you don't know, so much you don't understand. When he met God, first off, it was this feeling for him that he just dropped to his knees and it was like this light of just absolute, the most authentic, loving embrace of it is okay. Like you did it. You did your job. You did what you came to do. And no matter what, like I love you, and it was the most purest form of, all I can example it as is when you have a baby. That feeling, when you look at him for the first time, that instinct of just, I want to take care of you and I'm going to love you and I'm going to try my best, and that is like, it was almost like a rebirth for him. And he said he kept apologizing and apologizing and Jesus was there, like I said, and Jesus had his hand on his shoulder and saying, all is forgiven, forgive yourself, it's okay,
Did he feel like he fucked up? Like he did this all wrong?
he kept saying like, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know, like I just didn't know. He had no he did know because he heard of,
Yeah.
but he didn't live his life in that way. So he feels like oh great, like I didn't honor this. Like this is not who I, and it was the complete opposite reaction of how he would be afraid of that reaction. It was be like, oh my God, they're gonna hate me and throw me in hell, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like that at all. It was like Jesus was like, let it go. Like it is okay. He's saying it's okay. It is okay. And so then Jesus kind of knelt down next to him and looked him in the eyes and said, now lift up your head and look straight ahead. And when he did, that's when it was almost like this light of God just like kind of spiritually car washed him. And then he started laughing, like laugh crying, because he just felt that energy and of love and love and love. And Jesus said, I'm going to explain some things to you now. And your dad actually was turned very humble, very quick. He says, you're going to take a walk with me now. And I'm going to show you, he says, your kingdom of glory. He says, I'm going to show you grace. I'm going to show you where you deserve to be, where you'll be honored, where you can help the most, in so many words. Okay.
Of course.
And so he helped him stand up after his, sob crying, laughing, crying, laughing, crying, back and forth. And they started walking. And he started walking him through just like the most beautiful fields. Seeing like tulips everywhere. I'm seeing all these just wildflowers, and he's telling him it's going to be explained, and you're going to now, like, I'm going to introduce you to my friends. And those friends were his family that had passed before him, that greeted him. And when they greeted him, it was funny because he was in a field, and then all of a sudden these doors opened, and it was like this big party, it was music, but not our kind of music, not Nirvana. It was like people playing instruments and clapping, and there were kids there, and it was like a ski lodge, kind of like how it looked, like this area and this huge party, and everybody was so happy to see him, so happy, and they were giving him hugs, and there was all this food, and just like it was okay.
Yeah.
And he took his time at this party with each family member, and they reintroduced themselves, and they thanked him. They thanked him for just choosing to come back and doing his life, and going through those things. And oh man, I know that was hard. I saw it. I was there. you know, um,
So I want to ask him this question. What was the purpose of your lifetime on Earth, and what did you learn from this lifetime?
Okay, so this lifetime, he definitely learned to let the materialism go. There were so many lessons. It's hard to just say, this was my lesson.
Yeah.
It's such a bigger picture than that. Very much his lesson also was about authentic love and what that connection feels like, how to treat how to not just treat that person, how to grow your own garden, he says, to keep that garden, he says, of just love, to keep communication, he says, being inclusive, being more open. There are so many lessons, like being open-minded, being kinder. He's saying just a lot happened in his lifetime.
Yeah.
A lot happened, and those relationships obviously affected his behaviors. So he forgave himself.
Good.
He forgave himself because he understands now why he was who he was.
Yeah. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll continue with this conversation, going more into his afterlife in our next video. But if you'd like a private session with Abbie, I'm going to put her information down below so you can also connect your own loved ones. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.